Black Sabbath 1, the first album, we recorded that in 12 hours, believe it or not. The whole thing was done in 12 hours. Paranoid took a week. And then after that, the success started to infiltrate through the personal members of the band. It got to a point that if we didn't fly around the world twice and land in some obscure recording studio in the middle of nowhere, it wasn't going to be the best album. My argument with Sabbath was, why do we have to fly to Toronto in the middle of January and spend 3 months in the freezing cold to come out with what? An icebox?
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Diary of the Madman, the ultimate Ozzy Osbourne podcast where we geek the fuck out about all things Ozzy and all things Ozzy related. I am Josh Crum, and with me smiling as always, Mr. Dan Drago. How are we doing, Dan?
What's up? How you doing, Josh?
Doing excellent, man. Tired as hell, working my ass off, slaving to the grind. But you know what I get to do now? It's Ozzy time.
That's
Come
right.
here, spend the night with you and our main man, Mr. Ryan Beavers, who is also with us. How's it going, Ryan?
Fucking fantastic. Good to be here. Appreciate the invite. Hopefully sounding better a little bit now that I'm semi-professional with the mic.
Big news, ladies and gentlemen. Ryan Beavers has purchased a mic and is now semi-professional.
Yeah,
He's
always
$29.99 from Amazon, but still, it's a mic. We'll take
hey,
better.
double that. But still, yeah, I no longer sound like I'm in a well. I don't think. I
Right?
hope.
No. Definitely better, man. Definitely. Thank you for
All
doing that.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Ryan. Glad to have you on again, too. And also with Ryan being here, Dan, what's that mean? When we have three, what's that mean?
It's a battle time. I hope you guys are ready for this. We are moving back to Black Sabbath, guys. What do you feel?
Been way too long.
It has.
Way overdue.
Yeah, some Sabbath, and this is by far my hardest battle of them.
Yeah, they've all actually this battle. Me and Josh were just talking about this, and Ryan off air. This was actually a really easy battle for me, and I think it was kind of easy for Josh. And for the last 3 days, Ryan has been pulling his hair out, texting us, not sure where to go. So it's going to be a fun one.
You know, I'm sitting on almost 30 years of these albums in my timeline, and you think you know yourself, and then until you see those songs side by side, you're like, fuck, who am I? What is this? I don't know if it's like how they've aged or how I've aged, but yeah, I'm shocked, and I think you guys might be a little disappointed in me, maybe. I'm guessing. I don't know.
Let's be clear. Ryan's stress has been stressing me out because for a week he's been going, oh, man, I just don't know. This one's tough. I just don't know. So we're going to do a top 10 in order. No. We're just going to do your ultimate. Oh, okay. Yeah, I just don't know. And I'm going, I haven't even thought about it yet. Shit. Do I need to start thinking about this? Like, I'm not even give it a second thought.
But wait a minute. Is anybody surprised that Josh is just winging it? I mean, that's every episode.
Oh,
Let's
yeah.
be honest. We haven't even mentioned what albums we're doing, guys. So, Josh, why don't you tell the listeners what we're actually battling today?
So we put it up for vote with you guys, and you chose for the classic album clash of Sabbath Bloody Sabbath versus Sabotage from Black Sabbath.
Growing up back in the Stone Ages, you know, it was always the first 5 Black Sabbath albums that were considered like the Holy Grail. But I think as years have gone on, it's now the first 6. Wouldn't you guys agree with that?
I think it is for real fans, for sure.
Yeah. Honestly, these are my 2 favorite Sabbath records. I'll just get it out there by far. These are the 2 best Black Sabbath albums for me.
They're my 2 most revisited, without a doubt.
That said, guys, before we get into this week's episode, we thought we'd hit on a little bit of few pieces of news that came out over the week. We did have a new Ozzy Speaks where Ozzy was with Billy Morrison on Sirius XM. Not a whole lot of news, but it was a fun listen with Ozzy revisiting the Never Say Die release and the No Rest for the Wicked release because they had anniversaries this month. Was there anything on that you guys wanted to tip on real quick before we move on to the episode this week?
They brought up No Rest for the Wicked to Ozzy. And what was Ozzy's response, Josh?
Is that the one with Fire in the Sky on it?
Jesus.
Oh, you gotta love it. We obsess over these albums, and we know every detail and every moment. And the guys that fucking wrote them and recorded them couldn't give a shit. This goes back to, I'm going to name drop, but when we reached out to Barbara Ann Wild about Zach, you know, a few episodes back, she's like, Zach doesn't know what you're talking about or ever heard it. That noise on Evil Shuffle, you know, the scream or whatever. Like, we obsess over this stuff, and the people involved don't even really give it a second thought, man. It's so fucking comical that, you know, that's his response.
Yeah, we joke all the time about it that, you know, we've released so much material and we know Ozzy's material and Sabbath better than our own material. So I kind of get it from that perspective, but I mean, if you told me one of my records, I'd tell you what songs are on it. But I still find it interesting he mentions Fire in the Sky and not Miracle Man, because Miracle Man was the big single. We all know he's not a big fan of Crazy Babies. He even mentioned that in the Ultimate, the Ozman Cometh booklet, if you guys remember that. But he must have really loved Fire in the Sky, because that's the song he picked to play as well. Any song in the world he picked to play Fire in the Sky.
And on later tours, right? I mean, up until just a few tours ago, he's playing Fire in the Sky, off and on.
Well, to the comment on is that the one with Fire in the Sky? It goes back to, it reminded me of the God Bless Ozzy documentary that Dan refuses to watch. Do you remember, Josh, they sit and they have him watch some music videos. And you could tell he couldn't stand doing it. He was cringing the whole time. But he's like, I don't remember any of this. Didn't happen. Like, he had no recollection. As he's watching it, he has zero recollection of recording any of it, filming any of it. So that's just, I think it's just, besides his age, I think he's just drank and drugged himself that portion out of his head.
Dan, there's a section that Ryan's talking about where they're reviewing each of the music videos, and they're wanting his commentary on each of the videos. Like, tell us about this video. And in the middle 80s, there's just a complete struggle, and he doesn't really know. And it's not like like the Osbournes where it's kind of like, oh, it's sad. It's just it's funny, but not in a way you're making fun of it. He's just like, fuck this shit, I'm out of here. And he just gets up and walks out of the room.
Yes,
he just really doesn't remember how much for him.
Yeah, he was watching the Ultimate Sin video, and he just gets up from the couch. He's like, I'm just going to go walk around and watch this stupid shit.
Oh, that's a great video.
I love that video.
Yeah. Do they get to Miracle Man, by the way? Because he does mention the Miracle Man video this week about all the pigs and shit.
No, that was not in there.
Okay.
I think that's where it ended, actually, wasn't it? It just showed a couple of them, but yeah.
But he has to remember. Like, how does he not remember the So Tired video when the glass went through his throat? There's got to be some things that you have to remember.
Yeah, he probably that one he might have. It just was not part of the clip. Included it was Bark at the Moon, Breaking All the Rules, and the Ultimate Sin.
Breaking All the Rules is probably not a very memorable video. It's just him on stage.
Kind of a performance video, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, interesting. So the other interesting thing is the Osbournes released their new podcast this week. So they are back, the Osbournes. So it's Jack, Kelly, Sharon, and Ozzy. And Ryan, why don't you talk a little bit about what some of the things they talked about on the Osbournes podcast?
Apparently, they're going to kind of branch out and each do their own podcast. Ultimately, it sounds like Ozzy and Billy are going to maybe branch off from the Sirius, and they're going to have their own podcast, and it's going to be a semi-regular thing, which could be very, very interesting. And then I guess he's having another surgery. They're in the process of looking at some things, getting second and third opinions, but he's due for another surgery. And he actually discussed how basically the bone and muscle structure in his shoulders is so deteriorated that gravity just pulls his head down. He doesn't have the strength to keep it up, which is, that posture that you see him sitting, or him, the way he struggles to walk. All of that is related to it. They're hoping that this surgery corrects that, or at least relieves some of the pain that he's still in.
Well, one of the things I found interesting about that section of the show, though, it was some of the comments that he and the family made. Ozzy's like, I've always kind of walked with my head down and forward, though. It's like, it's not anything new. I've always kind of walked away because I thought it looked cool. And it was kind of his joke. He's like, I thought it looked cool walking like that with my head down. But it is true. He's always kind of walked that way. And another section I thought was very interesting was he said his neck, they had the neck surgery about 6 months ago, which he said had helped a lot. He confirmed on the new show that has indeed helped a lot, but now his lower back hurts. So it's kind of moving down like a domino effect down his spine a little bit, which is something that I've talked to you guys about privately. With me, I have lower back issues, and they said if we fuse these, it's going to put more pressure on the upper back. And this is kind of something that happens with these kind of surgeries. And he did mention that, and that the problems just kind of change. It seems like you get one thing fixed, it goes on to something else. But one thing I thought was very interesting, I want to get your guys' opinion on, was when he was talking about the Parkinson's and updating the fans. He said he's very tired of talking about all of it, which I can understand. It seems to be the topic all the time when he's around, right? But he said the Parkinson's really is something he doesn't think about, and that if he doesn't take his medicine, he said, I might shake a little bit in the morning, but it's not really an issue for me. He said, when people see me struggling today, they think Parkinson's. He said, but it's really not the Parkinson's. He said it all comes from that fall and those surgeries, and that the Parkinson's really isn't the issue in the slightest. And I thought that was very interesting because even myself, I put the Parkinson's as a huge issue in the way he's walking, the way he's looking. But he's like, I've always walked with a limp for many, many years now. He's like, it's nothing new. It's just that my back hurts, my neck hurts. And it's more compensating for that than the Parkinson's, and that the Parkinson's isn't really an issue. I thought that was kind of an interesting statement from him.
Yeah, I would say that it's encouraging in a way, because if the surgery can help him, that's great news. So it's actually really encouraging. And that video came out about 3 weeks ago of him walking. That was real painful to watch. And that's obviously has to be from his surgeries, because he's pretty messed up, guys. If you've not seen that video, it's kind of heartbreaking.
And I do think that's the video he was referencing about how he walks. And I've always had a limp and so on and so forth, and kind of walked awkward. I think that's the one he's getting at, the one that was making the rounds there.
Yeah, for sure. But it's very encouraging that the Parkinson's seems to be in control.
And there was a little bit of a piece of news that it sounded like it was just an interview with Sharon and Kelly for whatever reason. And they did say, like we've kind of talked about privately, like it'd be fucking cool if he did like a throne and he was in a chair and like they, did this badass thing. He doesn't want it. If he can't stand up, if he can't be moving around and be himself and what he wants to do, then he just doesn't want to do it. He just wants one more show, and it will not be from a chair.
I would be cool with seeing him in a chair. We've discussed it on the show. Dan would be cool with it. Ryan, I know you would be cool with it from a standpoint of just him being able to go out there and finish on his own terms. But you do also have to respect, I want to go out doing it right. And in Ozzy's mind, if I can't give it 100%, I'm not going to go out there. There might be nights his voice fails. There might be nights he doesn't feel as well, but he's going to give you everything he's got. And in his mind, I can't do that from a chair. And I do have massive respect for that, because it appears that's what they wanted to do at Power Trip. And Ozzy just said no to that.
Yeah, and I think I'm coming from it from a different perspective, that if it's just for a one-off show, I would not have a problem with it, because it's the only way for him to perform. Right. So if he wants to do one more show, he's going to have to do it from a chair, because I don't see it happening, guys, honestly.
Can I give you I don't know if I've ever said this on the air, but my theory of what they should do for him? So I think this upcoming summer, they need to book one more Ozfest, do about 15 dates across the country, maybe one in London, one in Birmingham, maybe. Have a kick-ass Ozfest lineup like they did in the 90s. At the end of the night, each night you have an Ozzy and Friends jam with Ozzy's band, different people coming up, guest singing, and then Ozzy comes out and does 4 or 5 songs at the end of the night, and everybody goes home happy, and he goes home happy. I think that'd be an excellent way to end it.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but maybe not 15 shows, maybe 2.
15 might be pushing it. Maybe or maybe 4, maybe 2 in the States and 2 in England or something, or something like that. But yeah.
Yeah, maybe LA, New York, and then, London, Birmingham.
But it'd be a chance to say goodbye. He could have Andrew there, just all the guys, We'd go wherever. But
I don't think he could do it without sitting.
Yeah, I mean it
well, for 4 or 5 songs, he could do the prop up thing he did at the Birmingham games and all that. He could do something similar to that.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's not open to that, For maybe he just can't do it for a whole show.
Yeah, it's probably not realistic to be in that position for 80, 90 minutes either. So
yeah, and he did come out and say he's devastated he can't do Power Trip. All his friends are there. Well, Sharon and Kelly said it in that same interview, that he's devastated that he's not doing Power Trip because all his buddies are there. He wants to go play with his buddies, and I thought that was kind of heartbreaking too. Yeah,
for sure, man. It's got to happen some way or another. One more show at least has got to happen. But ultimately, we all just want to see him happy and healthy and doing better. So
the cool thing is, everybody has said his voice is there. It's not a voice issue, and I think that was kind of proven on the record, Patient Number 9, because he sounds incredible. He sounds so much better on Patient Number 9 than he did on Ordinary Man. So you could tell he's improved vocally. So his voice is probably actually in great shape because he's not been over-singing on tour for all those years like he has in the past. So he'd probably sound incredible.
Well, that is one of the things they mentioned on the podcast, was that he has been working with a vocal coach like regularly. So that's part of it too.
Yeah. Well, and on Ordinary Man, you mentioned, even on that one album, we've discussed it before in the show, but if you hear the basic album, but then you hear Under the Graveyard, which was the last track cut for that record, he sounds better on Under the Graveyard than he did the other songs on the record. So you can even hear it throughout the progression of that session that his voice was getting stronger and stronger. So, yeah, the voice is there. We just got to get him up on his feet for a little bit.
And did you guys get the impression he just face planted on the floor, thinking he was going on his bed?
Yeah, well, that's what Sharon said on the show. She's like, he didn't break his fall at all with his hands. It was straight down to the neck. And
that's what he was saying on the podcast, too. He just flopped straight down on the floor, which is insane. I mean, how the fuck did you miss that? I mean, think about that. I mean, that's crazy to me. He missed his bed and just hit face first to the floor.
One other thing he said real quick with Billy Morrison on Ozzy Speaks before we move on, as Dan and I said on the last week's episode of the No Rest for the Wicked deep dive, he said that the album he listens to the most of his own is No More Tears.
Yeah.
Who told you? We were confident that was his favorite album of his own, Dan and I. It confirmed to us really quick. So I kind of dug that, him saying that there on the show. So pretty cool. I think it's pretty clear that he loves that album a lot.
Yeah. It's definitely No More Tears and Blizzard. By far. Those are the two. And you can see that from his live sets.
And speaking of No More Tears, we want to thank everyone. The response on last week's episode has been absolutely amazing. The numbers are through the roof. We're growing day by day, kind of like Dan's pants when his wife walks by. He grows a little bit more each day. And we couldn't thank you guys enough, man. Like, we are so excited to see the three of us get on here every day and see the numbers. And there's spells where you don't check the numbers at all if they're kind of But once they start going good, man, you can't resist every day but look at those numbers, and they're just going up and up and up. And we can't thank you guys enough for that.
The key is that it's growing a little. That's the key.
It can only grow so much,
Exactly. All right. Are we ready to get into a battle? These are two heavyweights, guys. I mean, two of the best metal records of all time.
And I don't Yokozuna versus Earthquake right here, baby.
That's right. I don't think anybody would say that. For me, this is Andre the Giant versus Big John Studd because,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm old. All right. So like what we talked about, we are doing a battle between Black Sabbath's 1973 classic Sabbath Bloody Sabbath versus 1975's Sabotage. Two all-time greats coming head-to-head in a battle. We're going to have to make a couple of changes, and we move some things around so it's a fair battle instead of just going track by track. So we're going to break that down for you right now so you guys know where we're coming from. So on this record, we're only going to do 7 battles. There are 8 songs on the album, but Sabotage has 2 instrumentals. So we are removing the 49-second Don't Start Too Late instrumental from the battle. So with that, we are going to go 7 on 7, and we're going to have what Josh does with his wife quite frequently, a threesome at the end of this battle. Here is the battle lineup. We have...
And that's when my pants grow.
Checking that 9-volt.
Exactly. I need to buy some batteries, by the way. Okay, so we're going to go Sabbath Bloody Sabbath versus Hole in the Sky. Then we have The Great National Acrobat versus Symptom of the Universe. Then Sabra Cadabra versus Megalomania. That is a battle right there. And then we have Killing Yourself to Live versus The Thrill of It All. Then we have the instrumentals Fluff versus Super Tsar. Then the 2 Ozzy pen tracks, Who Are You versus Am I Going Insane? And then we have the threesome, which is Looking for Today, Spiral Architect versus The Writ. What do you guys think?
Man, a threesome in a battle. How about that?
Yeah, that was Josh's idea, ladies and gentlemen. That was a good one.
We couldn't just leave it out. It's like either we can battle all 3 and you choose one, or you just give the nod to the fact that Sabbath Bloody Sabbath has one more track, which is kind of fucking awesome. I wish Sabotage had one more track.
Agreed. And I just didn't think it would be fair to do Looking for Today versus Don't Start Too Late. Then you might as well, that's not even a battle, right? Everybody agree on that. It would be an easy victory for Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. As cool as Don't Start Too Late it is, it just doesn't warrant being in the battle. All right, let's start it off. We're going to start with Sabbath Bloody Sabbath versus Hole in the Sky. This could be the toughest battle of them all, right out of the gate. And Ryan, because we know this has been such a painful process for you, you're going to start us off, baby.
Oh, yeah, this one, this one was tough. But I've always had a really, like Josh, a soft spot for Hole in the Sky. Just something about that track as an opener kind of just jumps right into it. I fucking love it. Ozzy's aggressive as hell. And my issue, as it's always been with Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, is that I think Ozzy is too fucking high. He's just too high. And I'm probably in a rare camp. I just saw Josh's face. I'm probably on my own on this. I actually kind of prefer the little adjustment that he made on Reunion for the melodies on Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. It's a little less aggressive. It's a little less piercing. It's just always been my little issue with that track.
Matter of fact, he first did that at the Ozfest here in Phoenix because he did Sabbath Bloody Sabbath on that little Ozfest tour before Reunion. And he changed his melody up there. So if you guys have that bootleg, it's fantastic. Has Ryan given your final vote?
Yeah. Hole in the Sky.
Hole in the Sky. Okay. Be clear like that. Perfect. All right, Josh, hit me.
Attack! Gotta love that, man. Hole in the Sky is such a fucking killer opener. That said, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath for me is one of those top 5 Black Sabbath songs of all time. So many fucking great moments in Sabbath Bloody Sabbath that you cannot count them. It's one of my favorite Tony Iommi riffs. Some of my favorite Tony Iommi riffs in the midsection of the song. Ozzy is not too high. I will come give you a big elbow drop off the top rope, Macho Man Randy Savage style, but we're saying that. But I do also like the melody change on Reunion. I will give you that. It is awesome. Ozzy just screeching to get those fucking notes, and he just barely gets it. Where can you run to? Oh, fuck. Even me singing it gives me chill bumps. I can't even do it. Love Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, man. All day long.
This is definitely a tough one because I go back and forth, to be honest. I actually think Speak of the Devil is the version of Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath that I think he sounds the best on personally. But he doesn't do that high part at the end. Well, he never does. He doesn't on Reunion either. But let's just be clear, that riff on Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath is maybe the most iconic riff outside of Black Sabbath by Tony. You know, it's the one that reinvigorated him. It gave him new life. It was the first time in his career he had writer's block. You know, they were in that haunted castle in Wales, and boom, that riff comes out and it changes everything. It is so iconic. I absolutely love the verses of Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, but it's really the chorus that does it for me, the nobody will ever let you know when you ask the reasons why part. I think just nudges over Hole in the Sky for me. Even though I love Hole in the Sky, both of these songs are top 10 for me. I'm going to say that a lot this show, guys. I'm just going to be honest. These are my two favorite records. I love them both. Ozzy's raw vocal, like Ryan said on Hole in the Sky, incredible. So excellent, excellent songs. I think Hole in the Sky is great. But when I compare the two choruses, Hole in the Sky, Take Me to Heaven, Window in Time, Through It I Fly, just quite isn't as good as the No One Will Ever Let You Know When You Ask the Reasons Why part. So for me, I'm going to just say by a hair, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath.
Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath for me is one of those songs that, you know, I think had Ozzy been able to perform this later on in Sabbath's career, like in the reunions and stuff, and really do this track in its entirety, it would be right there with War Pigs, I think, among Black Sabbath fandom as one of the top Black Sabbath songs of all time. And it kind of is anyway, but the fact that it wasn't able to be performed live for so long, I think kind of notched it down a little bit in the memory of Black Sabbath fans' brain a little bit. You know what I'm saying? It's not one of those classic songs as much for that reason. It's not played live.
This is easily on par with War Pigs as an all-time classic, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath is. And when people bitch about Ozzy not singing, I'm going to tell you right now, if you guys have never heard Bruce Dickinson sing this song, it is god awful. Awful. One of the worst covers I've ever heard in my life. And I'm a huge Maiden fan, but it just goes to show you how iconic Ozzy's voice is. Now, on the other hand, Pantera did a great job on covering Hole in the Sky, and I do believe that give that song a new lease on life later in their career. But unfortunately, it's just not nearly as good as the original. But yeah, Pantera did a great job of covering Hole in the Sky.
And real quick to piggyback off Josh there with as far as like the reunion and doing tracks live, I don't understand why they didn't keep that version of Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath in the set. It sounded fantastic. I don't think it bugged anybody. It just made no sense to me. Like I'm beyond grateful that it's on Reunion. I cannot fucking wait to get that vinyl. But I don't understand the way it was dropped so early.
Matter of fact, on the 13 tour, the guy in front of me the whole night was just, oh, they're going to play Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. I can't believe they haven't played Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath yet. And I'm thinking, there's no fucking way they're playing Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, right? But it's such an iconic song. Even though it hasn't been played so long, it's still one of their most iconic songs in their catalog.
And I agree, Ryan. I mean, the way they played it on Reunion was absolutely fine. And like you said, maybe even your favorite version melodically. But there's nothing wrong, you know, as an aging rocker, you know, you tune down. We talk about this a lot on the show. You tune down. The best thing you can do is change the melody to what suits you now. And that's the most forgiving way to sing a song, forgiving to the fans who are listening and to your voice for trying to do it night in and night out. But the new version of Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, they should just carry on with that. I agree with you 100% because it sounded great.
Yeah. Another thing, talking about tuning, by the way, both of these songs are tuned to C sharp. So interesting. Most of these albums are, but there is something I figured out that I think is quite ironic about these two records. And I'll tell you that coming up when the battle happens. All right. Next up, we have National Acrobat versus Symptom of the Universe. Two powerhouses coming to battle again. Both of these songs have been covered. Symptom was covered by Sepultura. National Acrobat was kind of thrown in there on the Sabracadabra cover by Metallica. So, Josh, why don't you start us off? Where do you stand on National Acrobat versus Symptom of the Universe?
Oh, yeah. Two classics for sure. So there is one song that has probably been played live by my band more than the songs we have written. And that song is Symptoms of the Universe. We play it every night during a cover medley that we do to close the show. And we do it for two reasons. One, I got a killer drummer who can slay the fucking drums on that song. JD Hall, Downtrend, shout out to you, my man. Two, I fucking love Black Sabbath. So for me, he's getting his rocks off doing his little drumming thing, and I'm getting my rocks off playing Black Sabbath every night for 90 seconds or so. So I fucking love playing it. I love National Acrobat. definitely one of those underrated gems from the Black Sabbath catalog, but it does not stand up in any way, shape, or form to Symptom of the Universe to me.
What do you have, Ryan?
So it's hard to disagree with anything Josh just said. I mean, I think Symptom is one of the most classic metal anthems of all time for just a multitude of reasons. I love the slow little acoustic kind of jam session that it fades out into. But discussing underrated or underappreciated Sabbath songs prior to this, and I think A National Acrobat is one of the most underrated songs in Sabbath's entire catalog. That's going to be my choice. From the first, I remember buying this on CD, and I remember this song in particular just like taking me to another place, and then just going back, repeat, and it still hits that same way all these years later. So, A National Acrobat. I'm going to be alone on that one, I'm sure, but that's my choice.
Well, Symptom of the Universe is my favorite Black Sabbath song for the most part. That might change later in this episode, by the way, but yeah, that's not even close. This is one of the battles. I think National Acrobat is great. It's amazing. Symptom of the Universe is one of the greatest songs of all time. Like, way better, in my opinion. It's not even close. From Billboard's drumming, lyrically, I love it better. It's one of my favorite lyrics that Geezer has ever penned. One of Ozzy's greatest vocal melodies and vocal performances. I think everything is better about Symptom of the Universe than the National Acrobat. And it's not a slam on National Acrobat. I think National Acrobat is great. I love that it's got two parts, the slow, heavy part, which I believe is written by Geezer musically. And then that up-tempo, cool little jazzy part that they do. Love the ending. It's almost like a speed metal song before speed metal. Really, really cool. Great drum fill. But I mean, this is Symptom of the Universe. This is the song Black Sabbath started every show with from 1975 on forward. It's amazing. It's what starts Speak of the Devil. This is one of the most iconic songs ever, with maybe Tony's greatest riff. I actually like the Symptom riff better than the Sabbath Bloody Sabbath riff. That's how much I love Symptom of the Universe.
Yeah, that fucking riff is just absolute brutality. That's Tony Iommi just encompassed right there. That's what makes him so great. And didn't Geezer recently educate us that A National Acrobat was about jacking off?
Yeah, he did.
Which really, I'm still not sure I understand or hear that, but it's okay. Geezer's smarter than I am. So
that's what made that. Hearing that is why I would have thought you would have picked it, Josh.
I'm burned out on it.
More ways than one.
I thought it was definitely about a pregnancy or maybe even abortion or something like that. But, I get that part of it, but I was kind of very shocked to hear that, Josh, that it was about jacking off. Crazy. So the interesting thing is both of these songs are tuned to C sharp again. So this is definitely the era where Tony was really tuning down to C sharp. The interesting thing about Symptom, though, is most people play it in standard tuning because Tony plays it on the 3rd fret, which when you're tuned down to C sharp is an E, right, Josh?
That is correct.
Yeah. So the crazy thing about Symptom of the Universe is if you listen to the live version from the 78 video and Tony's playing it on the G string, just like he does, he's using a standard guitar. So he's playing it a step and a half higher than what it is on the record, which is why Ozzy is destroying his voice trying to sing it.
Yeah.
And, I think why he sounds so much better on Speak of the Devil is because they are playing it in actual E, which is what the key of the song really is in.
Right.
Where, on the original recording, it's in the key of E, but he's playing it on the 3rd fret.
And one thing I was going to mention real quick about this whole battle is this, to me, and I think you guys will probably agree, this is Ozzy's greatest era vocally, these two records.
Oh, no question.
But like you said, live, they tuned these songs up and it taxed his voice so much. I think that's a whole lot to do with what kind of trashed his voice for years to come, that he really had to struggle from there on out sometimes vocally, was just singing these songs live in a different key.
Yeah, for sure. All right, next up we have the funky Sabra Cadabra versus the emotional, epic, incredibly heavy Megalomania. Two great songs. We got Rick Wakeman making a guest appearance on Sabra Cadabra, some great piano, some awesome melodies versus the ultimate epic, maybe Sabbath's longest song, if I'm not mistaken, Megalomania. Ryan, why don't you start us off?
Oh, this one was probably the hardest one for me for many, many reasons. It's just that Megalomania was one of the first songs hearing as a really young kid that scared me. There's being a horror hound and everything that not much does, but it's such an unsettling, chilling, incredible vocal delivery by Ozzy. They're just menacing and slow build, and then just crushes But Sabracadabra, I think, is one of the most incredible and, again, underrated riffs of Tony's entire career. I love the kind of the pep and everything. I love the energy and all of it. I'm not even content in my choice, but I'm going to go with Sabracadabra. And this is where I'm saying, when I said in the beginning, I feel like I don't know myself anymore. But this is just where I'm at, I don't know, in my life, in my mood, or whatever. And that just, I'm going Sabracadabra.
I'm speechless.
I don't got nothing to say.
I don't even know what to say. I'm gonna go real quick, Josh.
That's what he told his wife.
Definitely really quick. So I think this might have been the easiest battle for me. Honestly, I like Sabracadabra. It's a fun little song. I think it's got some great parts. I like the ending with Ozzy for sure, where he's kind of rapping the lyrics a little bit at the end. You know, the outro is great and there's nothing against it. Great vocals. I like the first part quite a bit better than the second part. The Feel So Good, I Feel So Fine part is better than Lovely Lady part. I don't know how you guys feel, but I think it's definitely better. Where Megalomania is haunting. It's gorgeous. It is creepy. It has one of Ozzy's best vocal performances. It has some of the greatest lyrics ever written. That whole "why don't you just get out of my life? Why don't you just leave me alone" part. Oh my God, that gives me chills. And then you have that great kick-ass Tony riff at the end, which is almost Tony coming in the future. That riff is so far ahead of its time that comes in halfway through. You know, well, I feel something's taking me, I don't know where. It's like a trip inside a separate mind. Great. The lyrics are so good by Geezer. You really feel, and the performance by Ozzy even better. You really feel like Ozzy's insane, which is what the song is about. Absolutely Megalomania, every day, all day. One of the greatest songs ever written. Josh, what do you got?
Well, you made me feel like shit. That's for sure.
You fucker. You ought to feel like shit. Megalomania rules, man. There's like War Pigs, then there's like Megalomania. It's like right there. Megalomania by a long shot for me. By a long shot. Sabracadabra's fine. You mentioned earlier that Pantera doing Hole in the Sky kind of gave it a revival back in the 90s. Well, I think Metallica doing Sabracadabra did the same thing. I know, speaking for people my age, when Metallica covered that song from Sabbath, we were like, whoa, holy shit. Like, it's such a deep cut. Like, who covers that? And then them throwing a National Acrobat in the middle of it, like, we totally got off on that. Like, it was just awesome that they did it. And it's still awesome that they did it. But that said, when you put these songs head to head, I am absolutely 100% Megalomania. Obsessed with, oh, dude. That part alone, done. And that midsection, forget about it. When it kicks in, like you said, Tony's ahead of his time. That's a great way of putting it. That section is so friggin' amazing. That might be my favorite moment in Black Sabbath all time.
Yeah, I mean,
it's right there.
It's right there. To be honest, I actually think the first part of the song I might enjoy a little better in Megalomania. I really like that slow part, man. It's so haunting. Yeah, it's one of the greatest songs ever written. Definitely, again, another one that is in my top 10 consideration. You know, eventually we'll do a top 10 Black Sabbath, but like I said, 7 of these songs are easily in consideration for being in my top 10, and Megalomania is definitely one of them. Again, very tricky little riff. I think Tony is on fire on Sabotage, and I know a lot of people think that Sabotage is not considered one of their classics like back in the day, but I think it's one of their most rockin' records, dude. I know. Tony is, I don't understand. Like, Ozzy talks about, I want Sabbath to get back to what they were, right? That's what he talks. That's why he hates Technical Ecstasy and Never Say Die. But his favorite Sabbath record is Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, which is kind of like a prog masterpiece, which isn't really kind of Sabbathy in parts compared to like the first 3 records. But to me, Sabotage is kind of a throwback to the first 3 records. I don't know why he doesn't love it. It's because they were getting fucked. Truthfully. Yeah. Ozzy
always, we talk about that so often, but he always goes back to the time and place and his mood and at the time, and the mood at the time wasn't good. And that's just all he sees in retrospect. 100%. The album itself is fucking completely slamming.
I don't think that's just him either. I think that's a lot of artists who have a lot of stories like that, where they were in a place, whether it was professionally, personally, they have a hard time going back to that time. And the fan base is like, what? You're fucking nuts. But yeah, I think it's a common story, unfortunately. But yeah, you're 100% correct. Sabotage is more like a culmination of Volume 4, Master, and Paranoid. Like, it kind of just, it's all of those kind of thrown together. between the epics and the riffs and it really is. But yeah, it's just the time. I don't know. It wasn't a great time in his life.
In any of their lives, it's really the beginning of the end, right? For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Fucked. Matter of fact, Geezer just came out today. I don't know if you guys saw this, and said if there's one thing he could change about Black Sabbath was that they would have hired lawyers from the beginning, so they wouldn't have got screwed. That's the one thing out of anything he could have changed. It's pretty interesting.
And, misery makes good art. So if you're unhappy, if there's a lot of things you're frustrated about in life, turn to your art to let that aggression go too. So maybe that's where all that came from.
Yeah. And interesting enough, this is the biggest break so far the band had up at that point. Obviously, between Volume 4 and Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath was a little bit of a break compared to the first three. But, we go from 73 to 75, which was unheard of back then. So they had time to write this record for sure, even though they were touring a lot, of course. All right. Again, both of those songs tuned to C sharp. And we're going to continue that trend. Next up is Killing Yourself to Live versus The Thrill of It All, which, of course, the title is from the man Aleister Crowley, Ozzy's first dabble of dealing with the Aleister Crowley topic, which, of course, is penned by Geezer. These are two great songs. I'm going to have Josh, you start this one.
All right. Yeah. Two definite classics. The Thrill of It All was the one that I think, did we not have that number one on our all-time Ozzy vocal performances for Black Sabbath episode way, way, way back when, like episode 3 or something?
I did for sure.
Yeah, I think I did also. I had it, I don't know if I had it number one, but I had it in my top 10 at least. It was definitely up there. What a freaking behemoth vocally from Ozzy on The Thrill of It All. That said, Killing Yourself to Live, an all-time Sabbath classic. Got to go with it. Just always loved the groove of that one. A song they played live a lot. Very fun to play on guitar. It's a riff, but it's not like a big chuggy riff. There's so many great parts in that song also. It really sets the scene of mid-70s Black Sabbath for me. Killing Yourself to Live is kind of a staple, a track I look to for what they sounded like at that time and space. So Killing Yourself to Live for me.
What do you have, Ryan?
I agree in the time and space, and I'm actually kind of realizing this about myself as this episode is unfolding, and I'm listening to you guys talk about Sabotage, and then I guess I'm just in a different place mentally than I was when these albums first came into my life, because I think 20 years ago I probably would have picked Sabotage songs every single time. I don't know. I guess I'm just in a different space mentally. I'm in a different. My tastes are different at the moment, so I'm trying to kind of give an explanation why I'm answering what I'm answering, because I shocked myself in the process of this. I don't know. I guess this has turned into an unexpected therapy session for me. I don't have much to add to this battle other than I have to go with Killing Yourself to Live too, because again, it's a time and place thing, and I think it's kind of the perfect bow around where Sabbath was at this time, and it kind of encapsulates this album really well.
Yeah, so this is the other one in the battle for me that's not even close. Even though I had Thrill of It All as my favorite Ozzy performance, the song doesn't even come close to stacking up against Killing Yourself to Live. Killing Yourself to Live is one of the greatest Black Sabbath songs. At one point, it was a top 5 song for me. It could still be, again, another one that is in heavy consideration for my top 10. And I think it's one of Ozzy's best songs vocally as well. I love the lyrics. I've loved the song even from the Live at Last version where Ozzy's just riffing lyrics off the top of his head. I just got to say, the I'm telling you, believe in me, nobody else will tell you. One of the greatest moments in Ozzy history, right? Wouldn't you guys agree? Absolutely fucking fantastic.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it.
That gives me chills, that part, every time. And then you got the fun smoke it, get high. A lot of changes. One of the things that I've really noticed about these two records that I like so much better about the early material is, it's going to surprise you, but if you go back and listen to some early Sabbath, Ozzy has one melody. Like Fairies Wear Boots, I think he's just got one melody the whole song.
Right. Yeah.
Or that he has two tops. But by the time he got here, these songs now have a lot more movements. You got 4 or 5 melodies going on. And I think that's why I like these songs so much better. Is Ozzy had a much better chance to grow as a singer. And I don't think people really give him enough credit, obviously. But both of these songs, because Thrill of It All is great. That inclination of direction, that part is fucking phenomenal. One of the greatest riffs Tony's written. It's so heavy. That little, right, by Ozzy at the beginning. Now
those
that
little
works.
inflections that he adds in. Yes.
So good. And that,
so good.
way better than the from fucking I don't want to change the world. Get out of here. But I like the first half of Thrill of It All considerably better than, well, that's my story, I'm sticking to it part. So that's why Killing Yourself to Live gets the nod. Nothing against Thrill of It All. I think it's awesome. But for me, Killing Yourself to Live, way up there in the Sabbath canon, which I think this could be their most underrated song, Josh. I don't think it gets talked to enough.
Yeah, it's definitely in the conversation. One thing I want to go back to that you mentioned that I enjoyed a second ago was how later on in Sabbath, they started changing the tempos, changing the melodies in mid-song. Ozzy would sing this melody, change the melody. Tony would change parts. When you go back and really look at it, that kind of began with War Pigs, right? That was the earliest song that really did that.
Hand of Doom is a big one, too.
Hand of Doom. Okay, yeah. Hand of Doom does it a lot. Same era as War Pigs.
Yeah.
But then it's like, when you look back at it now, all these years later, that turned into what we know and love so much about Black Sabbath, right? Like there's songs before that we love. Fairs Wear Boots is a great example that you mentioned a minute ago. When you go back to Black Sabbath, like before 13 came out, we always like, oh, we need some epics like War Pigs and Hand of Doom. We need those kind of epics back in our life again. And that, I think that kind of became Sabbath's calling card, changing tempos mid-song, changing melodies mid-song. And that's the stuff that makes us jack off.
Yeah, we call them movements, right? Not choruses or nothing. They're just different movements within the song. Yeah. It's amazing.
Sorry, just to interject here real quick. I think it started with Snowblind, but I think Sabbath Bloody Sabbath as in its entirety was Ozzy's coming out party as like a true like melody writer. I mean, he did many phenomenal ones in all the albums previous, but this album I think kind of cemented who he was going to be for the next 40 years in his career.
It's a great point. And he's not following the riff at all anymore, really, by this point.
It's like you've done great ones before, but now it's like you're just settling in on your space, right? This is where I want to be and go from there.
Interesting. Thrill of It All, by the way, is tuned to E, where Killing Yourself to Live is tuned to C sharp. So we have the first song tuned to E, which is actually quite shocking. Yeah, interesting enough. I love these two songs, but this is our first sweep, boys. Because Ryan,
Ozzy delivers what we consider maybe his greatest vocal performance of all time.
Yeah, right.
At least in Sabbath, right? So that's interesting too.
Interesting. We all know E and E flat, I think, is pretty damn good for Ozzy.
Yep.
So that's our first sweep. Josh and I had been on par, and Ryan, you have not been on par with us once. It's the first time.
Dude, not at all. And I think I'm going to be 38 here in a couple weeks, and I think that's really like I'm just a fucking different person now. And like,
as I think we all are, though. I think eventually, when you're my age and old again, you're going to go flip flop back to Sabotage.
Yeah, and maybe that's what it is, because like I said, 20 years ago, it would have been like, which one's the fucking heaviest? And that's what I would have picked, and that's just not. It's not where I'm at right now. So I'm going to be the one that probably continues to disappoint you guys.
But that also speaks to the strength of the songs, man. That all these years later, they can affect you in different ways. You've been listening to them for 30 years, but rather than being tired of them or worn out on them or burned out, they just strike you differently, and you like them even more than you did before. And that's what great music does, man. And that's what this is. These are all. Look, let's be clear. We say it every episode. We love them all. We love these songs, man, with everything in us, and that's what makes them fucking great. That they get even better with time.
Yeah, no question. All right, up next, we're going to take a little bit of a left turn and do the instrumental battle. So on one hand, we have Fluff, the beautiful acoustic composition by Tony Iommi, versus Superstar, which is kind of a really heavy operatic tune, which is way ahead of its time. All right, so I'll start this one. This is a tough battle. Actually, we joke, but this was the toughest battle for me out of the whole bunch. And I don't know why, but there's parts of both of these songs that I love, and there's parts of both of these songs that I don't love, which is quite weird. I think Fluff might be one of the most beautiful pieces of music ever created. And I think if Fluff was 1 minute, this would be a slaughter. But unfortunately, Fluff is 4 minutes, and it just overstays its welcome by a long shot. And then you have Superstar, which kind of has a Slayer riff to it. If you guys really break down that guitar riff, it's like Slayer South of Heaven 10 years before South of Heaven was ever written. And it is so eerie and creepy. And obviously you have like the pre-Dire of a Madman choir part. There is one little part of Superstar I don't like when they go to the halftime and they do the key change. I wish that wasn't in there. But when it comes out of that back to the main riff, and then finally 3 minutes into the song, Geezer comes back in and they're doing that little shuffle on the snare. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, yeah. It's so goddamn cool. So for that, I'm going to give Superstar just a hair, only because of the changes it has, and that it has a little bit more dynamic, and Geezer and Bill are a little bit more involved in it. I do think Fluff is prettier, and if Fluff was shorter, it would probably be my favorite Black Sabbath instrumental. But unfortunately, I think it just overstays its welcome. So I'm going to give Superstar And it also opened their concerts, which is a little nostalgic for me, obviously from 75 on, which is pretty cool. What a cool opening intro. And that opera part is awesome. It's so ahead. It's like European power metal, man, with a Slayer riff. Superstar doesn't get the love it deserves. All right, Ryan, what do you got?
Well, in the inverse of everything I've said so far in this episode, I don't have a whole lot to add to the context of the tracks themselves, other than, yeah, Fluff is too long, but Superstar is just, it's perfection. The whole operatic piece throughout is amazing. And I think, to what you just said, is a phenomenal concert opener. I think they completely dropped the ball in never doing that in the reunion years. At no point did they not come out to that song?
Agreed.
But that is my choice, Superstar.
Hey, there we go. What do you got, Josh?
Dan, there's not a whole lot more that any of us can add than what you've already said. You nailed it. Dildo, word for word. Superstar for me is easily the choice here. Fluff is gorgeous, but like you said, way too long. It is beautiful. But Superstar is like just a composition, dude. It's like Johann Sebastian Bach or something. Like, where do these guys come up with this shit at? In the middle of writing the greatest Black Sabbath album of all time, in my opinion. It doesn't mean it's going to win the battle, because the battles can be different sometimes. But this song comes out of nowhere. And like you said, perfect for the concert opener. Like you said, Ryan, they totally should have done it on the reunions. Don't know why they never thought to do that. It was amazing. And bleeding into Symptom of the Universe with it is perfection. You can't top it. Dan, there's really nothing more I can add than what you've already said. You nailed every word of that, man. It's fucking gorgeous, man. I love it. Superstar for me.
There it is. Another sweep, ladies and gentlemen. Awesome. It is such an iconic song, man. It doesn't get the love it deserves, quite frankly. I don't think I realized how heavy Superstar was.
It's
until
fucking
recently.
heavy as hell and creepy as hell.
It's creepy as hell.
It's a brutal song, man.
I'm telling you, it is Slayer before Slayer. It really is. Again, both songs are tuned
and then,
to E.
Like you said, like the chant and the march.
Best part of the song.
Oh,
yeah.
When it kicks into that, dude, you're like, this is bad as hell. And
that's when Geezer comes in, I believe.
Yes, and you picture awesome. Soldiers just marching down a field or something, or just marching. It's just so fucking cool, man.
Ozzy hated it, by the way. I don't know how you hate that song.
I don't either. Like that would be the one like Sabbath song that Randy Rhoads probably would have loved.
Right? Probably never heard it.
Probably never heard that one, but he'd have loved it.
All right, up next, we have the 2 penned songs by Ozzy Osbourne for Black Sabbath. And when we say penned, we mean music, lyrics, melodies, the whole thing. Obviously, Tony and the band added shit to it, but Ozzy penned these both on a keyboard, and you can clearly hear that on both songs. And that is the doomy as fuck, Who Are You? Which, when you play that riff on the guitar, is as evil as Black fucking Sabbath, the song, versus the ultra poppy Am I Going Insane, which I know a lot of people dislike for some reason, probably because Ozzy wrote it, but it is actually really catchy and kind of a precursor to his solo career, battling it out. And again, 2 excellent songs that Ozzy has penned. Interestingly enough, that these songs are both written in E. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, why I've been talking about this, because a lot of this is C sharp, C sharp, C sharp. Ozzy, left to his own device, pens these 2 songs tuning to E. So I find that kind of interesting. Not in the key of E, and the tuning of E.
Yeah,
all right.
440.
Yeah, 440, exactly. So Josh, why don't you start us off?
I've never played Who Are You on guitar, so I might need to go do that and kind of give it a good listen. Dan,
it's
and see
really easy, dude.
Well, yeah, it sounds like a simple, and he's just on the keyboard and just kind of messing around, obviously, and comes up with a cool melody and just kind of goes with it. But that said, this one for me is very easy. Am I Going Insane is a classic for me in Black Sabbath lore. My first Black Sabbath record was We Sold Our Souls for Rock and Roll, and Am I Going Insane was on that. I guess it's because I kind of grew up with it a little bit, but I've always loved this song. Love Ozzy's melodies, love how fun it is. I thought it had a creepy thing to it, and people laughing at the end, and just all the different voices, and your classic Ozzy nature, but before the classic Ozzy nature. You know what I mean? It was the precursor of the solo career, like you said, in so many ways. Am I Going Insane for me? Long shot on this one.
Wow, okay. What do you got, Ryan?
So neither one of these are anywhere near the top of my list, for sure. Just like Josh, my first album for Sabbath was Sold Our Souls for Rock and Roll. So I was introduced to it much earlier. I find Who Are You just very monotonous. It doesn't really go anywhere enough vocally for me. It's interesting that it's an Ozzy pen track, and then it's probably his most subtle outside of like Planet Caravan, but it's probably his most just like reserved, unadventurous vocal melody in his career, really. So that Who Are You just has never done anything for me. No, it's generally a skipper. So I'm going to go with Am I Going Insane?
Radio. All right. And everybody needs to understand that does not have anything to do with the radio edit. Mental radio was a thing they used to say back in England about being insane. This is shocking, but this is the one I'm going to be the odd man out. I think Who Are You is incredible. It's got an incredible melody. I'm going to disagree big time, Ryan. I think it's very emotional, and you can just feel the emotion coming off of the record player when Ozzy sings it. Like, you know, yes, I know the secret. That's it within your mind. Oh my God, I get chills just thinking about it. It is very simple. It reminds me a lot of the song Black Sabbath. If you played this, if the band played it on guitar instead of keyboard, it would be very reminiscent of the Black Sabbath track, Just Cast Our Souls into the Dust. I think the lyrics are a little bit more thought-provoking here than Am I Going Insane? I think Am I Going Insane is a fine song. Ozzy does a great job on both of these. I really like that opening guitar lick that follows the keyboard part at the beginning of Am I Going Insane? I think the reason I don't vote for Am I Going Insane, I do think the chorus is a little bit over the top and can be a little annoying at times. You know, that tell me people, am I going insane? A little overbearing for me at times, where I think Who Are You is more subtle. It's beautiful and haunting at the same time. And I definitely think Who Are You is the stronger song.
Oddly, that's kind of what I like about Am I Going Insane? Beautiful and haunting at the same time. You know, like I really hear and feel the vibe of Am I Losing My Mind in this kind of fun song. It's almost like No Bone Movies, but a vibe of I'm losing my mind rather than having sex. You know, it's kind of like it's fun, but serious nature. And I get the vibe of that and that also. So same, but different.
Yeah, I love the way it goes into the writ. It's Lewis crying, slowed down. It's eerie as shit.
Oh, it's
awesome. It is the great segue to the writ. No question about it.
Yes. And we talk so much about that on the show, you know, how track placement on the album means so much, and that no bigger place to state it than those two songs right there bleeding together.
Yeah, amazing. And I like Am I Going Insane? I really do. But I just think Who Are You is just a tad bit better today.
Ryan don't like Over the Mountain. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. It's okay.
That's a good point. All right, so that brings us, we're going to do a tally real quick before we get to the last three-way. So right now we have, Ryan, you're actually 3-3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Ryan right now is 3-3. This will be the tiebreaker. Josh, you are 4-2 Sabotage.
Sounds about right.
I am 3-3 even, just like Ryan. We got there in a different way, but it is 3-3. Yeah. So this will be my tiebreaker as well. So Josh, we already know you've got your winner already, so which is pretty cool. We're doing a three-way Looking for Today versus Spiral Architect versus The Writ. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, two of these songs are in my top 5. And one of them is my new favorite Black Sabbath song after all these years, has finally moved into the one spot. This is an incredible battle. And I'll be honest, this is probably the most fun battle for me, even though it wasn't the hardest. It's definitely fun. I'm going to have Josh start us since we already know kind of where you are on the album battle.
Well, you know, I mentioned earlier that just because you prefer one album over the other in your mind, it doesn't mean when you battle them, it plays out the same. It changes sometimes because of the matchups, right? So that said, still ahead with Sabotage. I'll take that because Sabotage is my favorite Black Sabbath album. The three-way, these are three absolute behemoths in my mind. Like, these are three songs that in Black Sabbath lore for me stand. Thank you, somebody's top 10. These could be three of my top 10 Black Sabbath songs. Probably not, probably more like top 15, but still three that I really, truly love. And just earlier today on my drive home, I messaged the guys and sent them a picture of me jamming out to Looking For Today, and I quoted it and said, is this Black Sabbath's most underrated song? Fucking love Looking For Today, man. Love everything about it. Love the melodies, love the energy of it, love that it's a little bit like poppy, and it ain't so heavy, and that's kind of what I love about it. Love all three of these tracks, but man, The Writ is The Writ, and that is Black Sabbath incarnate in my mind. I want nothing else from Black Sabbath. If I had a full album of those tracks, I would listen to it on repeat. Everything about that song, you know, love the vocals. You know, I'm sure Dan's going to mention in a minute, written by Ozzy Osbourne. There's moments in there where I think Geezer definitely pitched in and helped a touch.
Shock Troopers.
Yeah, there's some moments where you go, okay, now Ozzy didn't write that, but Dan, you've wrote. And I want to discuss this with you. I was thinking about it on the way home. You and I both written a lot of songs. There's a lot of times you'll help a buddy or a band member out. It don't mean you necessarily want credit for helping him out. So if we say Ozzy wrote the lyrics to this song, it doesn't mean he wrote every single word. It doesn't mean Geezer didn't help out. It just means Ozzy wrote the heavy majority, and Geezer was more or less like, hey, that one's Ozzy's, and that's okay. It happens in a band.
Well, Lennon and McCartney are the perfect example of that, right? They would bring in their lyric, and then one of them would change a lyric here and there to make the song even better.
Yeah, and it's okay. Or hey, Geez, I got the majority of the song, but there's this section I'm struggling with, and Geezer puts his poetry on there, which you can hear the sections where I don't believe it's Ozzy. It's pretty when you read the lyrics, you kind of know the ones where it starts getting a little bit more sophisticated, and then kind of that comes back down. But again, written about the attorneys at the time, how screwed over they were. They were pissed off in this era. We've discussed it a lot in this episode. They were so pissed off with the attorneys, and I love where it's coming from. And I think Ozzy truly wrote from his gut with this one. My pick for this battle is easily The Writ. As much as I love all three of these tracks, The Writ for me is tops for Black Sabbath. It's easily one of my favorite Black Sabbath songs.
Yeah, great choice. So I'll go now, and I'm just going to talk about all three songs real quick. And this is a fun battle because I agree. Looking for Today, you and I talked, Black Sabbath is back touring. We thought he could have sang this one live. Josh, remember?
Yes.
That we felt like this one could have made the set, instead of the Looking for Today, he could have kept it down instead.
Pitch it down.
And just pitch it down. I think he could have easily done this song. It's a fun ass song. It has got a great riff. Again, I really like the segue between Who Are You into Looking for Today. I think because Who Are You is so doomy and desolate, and then all of a sudden flips a switch, and all of a sudden we're in this really up-tempo fun track. And I think this is I always consider Looking for Today Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath's younger brother or sister, because it's got that heavy verse, but it's got that mellow chorus. Everyone just gets on top of you. The pain begins to eat your pride. It's kind of like Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath.
Pride. I fucking love the way he phrases that word, man.
It's so good.
Love it.
Love it. Amazing. And that part is incredible. I absolutely love it. Let's switch over to Spiral Architect. I think obviously Bill Ward was really heavy in bringing this one in live when they reformed. That was his choice to bring back into the set, which was obviously played in the 70s as well.
When you first saw the set list for Reunion and saw Spiral Architects on there, what was your initial holy shit? I know
my most anticipated track.
Dirty Women for me was my most anticipated at the time, to be totally honest. But Spiral Architects was the biggest shock. It was like, oh my goodness gracious, are you kidding me? And they nailed it. Like, absolutely nailed it.
I actually have him doing it on a couple of bootlegs from the modern era, and he sounds great on them. Absolutely great.
Yeah.
Ozzy really does great job live. So Spiral Architect is one of my favorite lyrics ever by Geezer. I think Ozzy's performance on this song is incredible. I would be shocked if this wasn't in my top 10 Ozzy vocal performances. I think it's one of his greatest. His harmonies are fucking sick on this song. He is so high on his harmonies, man. It gives me chills. One of his best performances of all time. I love everything about it. I think it's one of Geezer's most intelligent lyrics, and absolutely in my top 5 favorite Black Sabbath songs. And then we have the fucking Writ from Sabotage. I'm going to just tell you right now, this is my new favorite Black Sabbath song. Josh, I don't know what's going on today, but we're back in love, baby. We're so much on the same wavelength. If I had to pick a Black Sabbath song, this is what I want out of my Black Sabbath.
On the way home from work, I was jamming Looking for Today so fucking loud in my truck. Windows down, and it's so fun to play that song. And there's not many. How many choruses can you name in music history that literally repeats 3 words over and over, but you love more than Looking for Today? Like,
No More Tears.
Love it. And right. Well, that's a good one.
Yeah. That's
I was
about
just
it.
screaming it the whole way home. Looking for Today.
It's awesome.
Just rocking. But man, the Writ. It's the Writ, dude.
It's the Writ.
It's
all
the
right?
Writ.
Just that intro, right? With the bass. And when the guitars come in, it's so simple. He's, tuned to C sharp. I think he's playing a C to D. Boom. Ozzy.
And like you said, the baby crying turning into the demon screaming. The demon, I wouldn't say scream, but the squeal of that is just so fucking scary.
And this is such an Ozzy lyric. Matter of fact, he reuses this lyric his solo career. But the way I feel is the way I am. I wish I'd walked before I started to run to you. And the way he says run, that's the word for me. You know, you mentioned it in Was It Looking for Today that you like the word, but for me, the way he says run, it's so damn good, man. It's incredible. And it's so emotional. I'll be honest, guys, that I think this song is the epitome of what I want from a Black Sabbath song. It's got all of these different movements. It's got incredible music, and the emotion that Ozzy sings with is unparalleled, maybe in his career. And I'll say this, when I'm depressed and I'm down and I was going through some maybe depressive struggles earlier this year, this is the song I'd come to that would kind of get me out of it. A smiling face that means the world to me. So tired of sadness and misery, right? I mean, I hate to say that, you know, not to get too personal, but this song has saved my life over and over and over again. My life had started some time ago. Where it will end, I don't know. I thought I was so good. I thought I was smart. I feel my world being torn apart, but everything is going to work out fine. Because if it don't, I think I'll lose my mind. Maybe one of my favorite moments in music history. Like I said, this one is personal to me, and it's great musically, but this is everything I want in a Black Sabbath song. Sorry to ramble. It is The Writ. All right, Ryan, what do you got?
Well, I don't have a whole lot to add that you guys haven't just fucking wrote a book about, especially you, Dan. That was awesome. No, don't be sorry. That was awesome. And you got me thinking about my choice now. I do love The Writ. It is just one of the heaviest songs ever written. I put Ozzy's vocal performance on that song up against anyone. And then unfortunately, it's a song that I think is a little bit buried in their career. Like if you're a Sabbath aficionado, we all know it. It's just one that just is never going to get the praise that it truly deserves. Looking for Today, I think, has one of the greatest choruses of Ozzy's career. But just he sounds incredible, and I agree completely that could have easily been one that they pulled off. I do think, to what we discussed earlier about Sabotage Sabbath, and maybe this kind of harkens back a little bit to like Ozzy won't sit in a chair. I do think he has like a mental block of I can't do it the way that it was done. Like I'm just not going to do it. Whether there's any truth to that, I don't know. But maybe that's where he did do that key change for Sabotage Sabbath. And he could have done it several more times on several other songs, but I just don't think maybe mentally that was something he was willing to do. I don't know if I'm onto anything there, but I think there's probably some truth to that. So now leading into Spiral Architect was absolutely the song that I was looking forward to listening to the most on Reunion. It might be my favorite of that album. It's just one that I revisit a ton. They nailed it from beginning to end. Ozzy sounds incredible. I've heard a ton of those bootlegs too, different versions of him doing that. And he did. He always nailed it. I look at that as like a prog just masterpiece. And again, this is just where I'm at mentally at this point in my life, I guess. I'm going to pick Spiral Architect. It's just so different. I love the strings. I love the way it ends with the little like round of applause. It's just kind of just this perfect end cap to a pretty much perfect album. So yeah, I'm going to be the odd man out again, and I'm going to go Spiral Architect.
No, it's a great choice. And I'm going to be perfectly honest. If this was a year ago, I picked Spiral Architect. I swear to God. I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, it's just where I am today. And a year from now, I might be raging about whatever, and it's The Writ every time.
Yeah. Well, The Writ is, I think it's a song that Dan and I have pumped each other up with also. Like we talk about that song a lot, the two of us, and always have. And let's just be clear too, this threesome right here, this three-way battle we got going, these are three, like I said earlier, they're behemoths, man. All three of these tracks are fucking classic, awesome Black Sabbath. You know, in my head right now, Looking for Today is the one that keeps going through my head as we're sitting here discussing it. You know, just that chorus. And again, three words that are so repetitive, but so fucking amazing. Spiral Architects, same thing. I Build, You Pay.
So good.
There's so many great moments in these three songs. I'm just kind of like Dan. I'm just over the moon with The Writ. So it kind of made it an easy choice for me.
Right.
But that doesn't mean the other two options were shit. These are three great tracks, man.
My favorite battle by far. The whole album, this was my favorite battle. I should mention Will Malone does the orchestration for both of these records. Main reason I say that is he obviously was brought back for Ordinary Man, which I think is awesome. So
That's very cool.
Really cool that Will Malone did the orchestration for Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, and Sabotage, and then was brought back for Ordinary Man. All right, so to do a brief recap, here are the final results from our battle. First up, we had Sabbath Bloody Sabbath versus Hole in the Sky, where Sabbath Bloody Sabbath won. We had a National Acrobat versus Symptom of the Universe. Symptom of the Universe won. Then we had Sabracadabra versus Megalomania, where Megalomania won. So right now we have it 2-1 Sabotage. Next up, we have Killing Yourself to Live versus The Thrill of It All. Killing Yourself to Live was the victor. Then we have Who Are You versus Am I Going Insane? And Am I Going Insane pulls it out. And we also have Fluff versus Super Tsar, where Super Tsar takes home the prize. And finally, we have Spiral Architect, Looking for Today, and The Writ, all in a three-way battle where The Writ wins. So again, the final tally is Sabotage 5, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath 2. So before we get going, this is one I'm going to throw at you left field. We didn't even talk about it, but we have done this in battles in the past. Let's go right now and debate which album cover you prefer. So Ryan, you go first. What album cover do you prefer? Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, that incredible satanic picture, which is awesome, versus the very artsy fartsy mirrored Sabotage.
I mean, I guess the artistic, side of me is going to go Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. There's so much to that. There's so much to unpack. It's like the ultimate Antichrist, kind of, thematic piece that's probably ever been out there on a large scale. That there wasn't an incredible amount of controversy around it at the time. If there was, I'm unfamiliar with it. Shocks the hell out of me, especially given the time that it was put out. I mean, you could say just as well today. But back then, I mean, it's some pretty intense imagery. I fucking love it. But there's also something that I do kind of have a soft spot for Sabotage, just because it's so ridiculous, and the story of it is hilarious. The whole flipping through my vinyl and stuff like that, and just everything about it. They were unprepared. They're in their underwear, wearing each other's clothes. It's ridiculous. So aesthetically, I'm gonna go Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, but for just pure entertainment, Sabotage.
What do you got, Josh?
Yeah, I have two answers to this, and I apologize. I know that's kind of cheating, but of the two, I prefer Sabotage. People make fun of Sabotage's album cover, and I do realize it's goofy with them, like I said, wearing Bill's clothes and whatever all. I get it. But I actually always really like the album cover where they're standing in front of a mirror, but you see the opposite of the mirror. You don't see their backs, you see their fronts again. I actually always thought it was cool as shit. I like that album cover. Ozzy in the kimono. If the boot's on, I'm a big fan of that look. Actually, I thought he could have rocked that on stage and it'd been fucking awesome, personally. That's just my opinion. Tony sitting down being the oddball, as he always kind of was a little bit. I love the album cover for Sabotage. So I choose Sabotage. That said, going back to Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, I love how the front cover looked like hell and the back cover looked like heaven.
That's what I was going to mention.
So fucking cool, wasn't it? You got black and reds and oranges on the front, and on the back side you got white and blue. It's peaceful.
And somebody's lifting them, right? It's so awesome.
So while I prefer the cover for Sabotage, I love the package of Sabbath Bloody Sabbath.
So I'm pretty much exactly spot on, Josh. To me, Sabotage is probably my favorite Black Sabbath album cover, just because of how crazy it is. It's the only album cover with all four on it, which I love. I think that sets it apart. Obviously, Volume 4 is so iconic too. I love the fact that you're looking in the mirror, but you see the front both ways. Yeah. And I just think it's so brilliant. And Geezer's got the fucking cane, and Tony's sitting cross-legged on the front. Who the fuck knows what Geezer and Ozzy's wearing? I was always, as a kid, just enthralled by the cover of Sabotage.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool. You flip it over and you get the reverse of them, and it's the reverse in the mirror. I think it's just really cool. But I agree with both of you. The concept of Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, of the heaven and hell front and back, just genius. So and cool. I agree, Ryan. I can't believe they didn't get more shit back in 1973 for that. Maybe because The Exorcist was just out and that was just kind of in the mainstream, but
and with the bed and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that it's just such a creepy fucking cover.
I kind of nicked the idea of Sabotage's cover on one of my band's records. It was an EP called 4. And what I did was I just had a giant 4 with the downtrend across the middle, and you could see it, but in the background, you could see backwards the back cover. So if you're looking at the 4 from the front, you would see the back cover behind the 4 and the downtrend. But if you flipped it around, and you can see the song titles and stuff, but then behind it, you would see the backside of the 4 and the downtrend.
Yeah, that's
so
cool.
I kind of And I nicked that idea strictly from Sabotage. That's where that came from, that idea.
All right, so we are going to do now our top 7 songs combined, like what we would consider the ultimate album if you combine these records, which I think when I look at my list personally, this album would rival Diary of a Madman for the best album of all time. That's how good these records are. It's pretty interesting. So we'll go around the room. I'll start. I'll say the first song, and then we'll just go from there. So again, we're only going to do 7 songs since we did 7 battles. So for me, my iconic opening is still going to be Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. What do you got, Ryan?
I'm going to stick with my choice, and my opener is going to be Hole in the Sky.
Josh?
Oh, my opener, I'm throwing Super Czar in there, and I'm going into Symptom of the Universe, man. All in one track.
Wow.
Love it. Just like the live tours after that. Super Czar into Symptoms of the Universe. So I got 8 on mine. I'm a cheater.
All right, we'll let you cheat. All right. I'm shocked you guys don't start with Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, man. That's kind of cool. I'm not
Thought
expecting
real hard
that.
about it.
So my second track is Symptom of the Universe. So we go from Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath right into Symptom of the Universe. What do you got, Ryan?
My second track's going to be Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. I love that like hard, unexpected stop of Hole in the Sky directly in that fucking badass Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath riff.
Yeah, cool.
And I'm sliding from Symptom of the Universe into Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. So yeah, we're on
awesome.
par with each other. Yeah.
So I guess in the old age here, this track would be the end of side 1 for me, and that would be Megalomania. Ryan?
I'm going to keep the sequence going here, and after Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, I'm going to go National Acrobat.
Once again, me and Dan are on par. So I'm sliding out of Symptoms into Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. Then I'm going to slow it down a touch with a little Megalomania.
Yeah. We actually have the same tracks on our side 1, Josh, just a little bit reversed. That's cool. So my track side 2 is going to open up with Killing Yourself to Live. What do you got, Ryan?
So we're kind of in the same headspace here, only because I looked at this track as closing side 1, and I picked Megalomania.
Okay. That's cool.
My side 2 opens up with Hole in the Sky. It is a killer
Nice.
album, Ryan.
My 5th track is going to be Hole in the Sky. What do you got, Ryan?
What I looked at as opening my side 2 technically is Sabracadabra.
Nice choice.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What do you got, Josh?
Next up for me is Looking for Today.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Next up for me is Spiral Architect. What do you have, Ryan? That would be track 6.
My track 6 is going to be Killing Yourself to Live.
Track 6 for me is where the wonderful The Writ comes into play.
All right. So to end the album for me, shocker, is going to be The Writ. What do you have,
Something
Ryan?
tells me that Ryan and I have the same closer because it's the perfect fucking closer, isn't it,
No.
Ryan?
The
No,
Writ is the
Yeah.
perfect closer.
Yeah, it is.
My-
It is.
my closer is going to be Symptom of the Universe.
Oh my God! Okay.
Yeah,
you got
just
to
that
have that
little-
on there. So
that
yeah,
little acoustic
definitely.
outro that just like kind of fades out. End of album.
Okay. I thought you were going with me on Spiral Architects to close the album because of the awesome bow ending of the fade out and the applause and then the reprise. You mentioned that earlier during the battle. I love that also, and I think that'd be a great way to end the album. So that ends my album.
You and I had 6 of the same. 7 choices were the same. The only difference was you did not have Killing Yourself to Live, and I did not have Looking for Today. So
Yeah.
very, very close. I had a 4-3 Sabotage, just like my battle. And what about you, Ryan? What was your final count for your album?
It was 4-3.
Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I am 4-3 Sabotage, which I think is how
yeah.
the battle played out. So what was the battles?
Yeah, so here are the battle results. Ryan, you were 4-3 Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. Josh, you were 5-2 Sabotage. And I was 4-3 Sabotage.
So if then I'm 4-3 in the actual album listing, that means I like Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath a little more than it looked like during the battle.
Yeah. Well, they're the 2 greatest records. I could have went some days I could go 6-1 Sabotage, and some days I can go 4-3 Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. So it just depends kind of what I'm feeling. This was awesome, man. Thank you guys. I'm glad the fans absolutely picked this battle because this is one I've been wanting to do for a long time. My 2 favorite Sabbath records. What do you guys think? You happy with your choices?
Yeah, I think I can live with it, man. And thank you guys for reaching out and voting. I really thought we were going to be doing Blizzard of Oz versus Diary of a Madman. I was preparing for it, and the fans threw us a curveball and voted for Black Sabbath. I think they spoke. They wanted a little more Sabbath in their lives, and we're glad we could bring it to you. And had a good time doing this with you guys, man. I love these records. It's fun to go back and revisit them. And the funny thing about recording these shows that you fans don't realize is the 3 of us, we'll be listening to these 2 albums for the next 2 weeks now.
Yeah, for sure.
I think I shocked myself as much as I might have shocked you guys. So these choices could change in a year, but for right now, this is Sabbath. Bloody Sabbath is my go-to. I guess I'm in that more proggy mood.
There were years where Bloody Sabbath might have been my favorite record by Sabbath, and right now it's Sabotage. It was early on too. For some reason, when I first got into Black Sabbath, Sabotage was definitely the record that spoke to me the most, and it still does 40 some odd years later.
I love them. I know we all love them all, but Sabotage, I just don't know that it'll ever be topped for me with Black Sabbath. There's just something about this album that just like you said, touches me too the same way, man. It doesn't let up. There's no let up.
The eye-opening thing for me is The Writ is definitely the song I go to. There's 2 songs, and I won't tell you the other one because eventually we'll talk about it, but The Writ is one of them, and this other song's the other one. They're clearly the 2 most listened to Black Sabbath songs for me. But that's what made me realize The Writ is definitely my favorite Black Sabbath song for the reasons I talked about. And that was a real cool experience for me to learn this week. So listeners, let us know, what is your pick for battle? Throw your actual battle performances underneath so we can see who's winning. Instead of just saying Sabotage or Bloody Sabbath wins, we'd like to know, hey, is Hole in the Sky your choice over Bloody Sabbath? Do you prefer Thrill of It All over Killing Yourself to Live? Let us know which Ozzy track you prefer. Who are you versus Am I Going Insane? So again, awesome battle. What else you guys got?
That's it, man. Thank you guys again for the awesome numbers you've been putting up for us. We really cannot thank you enough. We look forward to doing this stuff for you guys and for ourselves. I've looked forward to doing this for the past 3 days. We work so hard, and we're glad we can give you something to take a break to, but it gives us a break also to get together and hang and talk about Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath. Man, there's nothing we'd rather do. So thank you guys for tuning in and listening.
Thanks for having me as always, and it's been a lot of fun.
All right. Again, thank you for listening, and until next time, we will see you all on the other side.
Thanks for coming.
No, thank you for coming.
Definitely. One of the things I wanted to tip, did you say tip on? One of the things I wanted to talk about is what are your guys' thoughts about Ozzy re-recording?
I hear the Undertaker's dong.
Damn it! I thought
the Undertaker's dong.
I thought I had my shit muted.
Okay.
Sorry, and it
So
was.
I thought it was the opening of Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
Classic.
Am I up?
The crazy thing is, hold on, I gotta clear my throat.
Let me clear my throat. No, 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 no.
What is that?
No, no, no. You don't know that song?
No.
From like the 90s? Neither one of you know that song?
No, you just write that.
Party club anthem back when I was growing up, whatever. Brian's like got this thing. He plays with his beard now, I've noticed. He's like
Constantly. My wife hates it.
I had the same problem for years. I couldn't grow right here for years. Just like
I couldn't either. I used to take a eyeliner and I would
No, you
color
didn't.
Yeah, because I had a part of my mustache wouldn't connect to my beard and I hated it. So I take eyeliner and I'd smear it and I take my finger and just smear it in. So
That's awesome.
yeah. What songs are we doing again?
The 2 Ozzy songs. Who are you?
Am I going insane? And who are you? Yeah. I'm fucking. I was just. I don't know. My kids are being loud. And I started kind of getting distracted. I think my first Black Sabbath record was "We Sold Our Souls for Rock and Roll." Rock and roll. So that's the country that was. We sold our souls for rock and roll.
Sorcerer.
I'm sorry, Dan. Real quick. I'm sorry. What'd you say right there at the end, Dan?
Like that.
True story.